we left yesterday. And yesterday, when I gave you a brief glimpse of what we're going to talk about today, and I said that here is this person, an entrepreneur, who has approached us, you and me, and he has made a powder which you can mix in milk, and he wants us to market it for him. And I asked you a question that, so what should be our first question? And I got different replies, somebody talking about advertisement, somebody talking about giving free sachets, samples, somebody talking about asking for money or things like that. But thankfully, there were a few people who gave the right answer, and which is that the first question that you should always ask as a marketing person is, who is your customer? Because marketing is understanding the needs of the customer and meeting those needs profitably. Marketing starts with the customer and ends with the customer. Marketing is about respecting the customer. Marketing is around the customer. And therefore, your first question at any point of time should always be, who is my customer? The rest of the story starts later, but first, who is the customer? And the moment we talk about the customer, obviously we come to segmentation. I have said before, what is segmentation? Dividing the population in a number of groups such that each group is homogeneous within itself and heterogeneous among itself. So to understand that who is the customer for that powder which can be mixed in milk, when we do the segmentation, then there can be many segments. So it can be for children, it can be for senior citizens, it can be for working women, it can be for sports people, it can be for people who are going to the gym, or there can be 100 other segments which we can decide. But first, you do the segmentation. On a very, very broad scale, when I see, I'm looking at 4 segments. I'm looking at children, and I just took 30 seconds to decide that. I'm looking at children, I'm looking at senior citizens, I'm looking at working women, or maybe women above a certain age, and I'm looking at sports person. But in order to help you understand my topic, which I will come to, for the sake of simplicity and nothing else, right now I'm taking only 2 segments, that is children and senior citizens. And I'm taking these 2 segments so that I can bring out the contrast and help you understand the point which I will subsequently make. So if I take senior citizens and if I take children, then, so let us see what happens. So when I take children, when I'm talking about the product, what happens to the product? A child is children. You need to take care of the children, and children are not something who listen to you. You say, do this, and they will do that. No, that's what bachpan is all about. That's what childhood is all about. Being naughty, not listening. When mama says go north, they go south. And therefore, and also, children get bored very easily. They are not going to drink milk. They don't understand these words, nutrition, etc. They will drink milk if it is tasty, simple. If it is not tasty, they will not even touch it. So what gives the taste? The different flavors. However, at the same time, if you keep giving them chocolate flavor the entire year, after a point, they will say, hello, I'm bored. What does it mean? They want taste and they want different taste. Even you and I mean, we can't eat the same food every day. And therefore, when we are talking about the product, developing that product for the children, flavors becomes important. When I say 2+, it becomes, I have to put more time and effort. On the other hand, senior citizens, yes, they too like taste. However, they are not going to be so finicky about flavors. They are not going to ask you to develop. I mean, they're okay if you just have 1 or 2 flavors. And therefore, the amount of effort that needs to be put in developing flavors for the senior citizens is less as compared to the amount of time and effort need to be put in to develop flavors for the children. Packaging. So here is this big, black, ugly-looking package, and then you tell the child, you know what, beta, this is the powder I'm going to buy for the milk. He's going to be like, Mama, what? Children love colors. Children like brightness. And therefore, when you're talking about packaging, you need to work on the packaging. It should be interesting. It should be colorful. It should attract them so that the child says, Mama, I want that. And therefore, the amount of time and effort you need to put in for packaging is different as compared to the amount of effort you need to put in packaging for them. This doesn't mean that you will make their packaging absolutely boring or not interesting or attractive. No, but it's just that the effort is different. Then the size of the product. So in India, I've told you 100 times mothers are born with only one organ called the heart. And how do we give milk to the kids? So most probably twice a day. And the mother will fill the spoon till the brim with the powder so that it's like really chocolatey or strawberry or whatever. So the quantity being consumed is more. The child is having milk twice a day, and the love of the mother will ensure that the powder she puts is at least 2 spoons every time, so 4 spoons in a day. And therefore, the packaging that most probably she will buy, she's more comfortable buying a big packet so that she doesn't have to go and buy it again after another week or 10 days or so on. And therefore, most probably, the size that we will develop for the kids would be on the bigger side. On the other hand, I don't know if you've ever noticed senior citizens, if you have taken time out of your own busy life to look at their life, as you grow in age, the amount of food they eat becomes less. So that big bhel puri or that big pav bhaji or that big chole bhature that you finish in just 5-10 minutes and then you say, I want more. That's too much for them. I mean, they are happy with that just one plate. The diet reduces, the consumption reduces. And therefore, so is true for the amount of milk and the amount of powder also that they are going to use. They're not going to be comfortable buying that huge packet which may last them for a very long time, and they may be more worried about that it will get spoiled. They are more comfortable buying small size because that will last them for the time they need. I mean, so that maybe for in a child's house, that 1 kg packet will last for a month. Maybe for senior citizens, a 500 grams packet will last for a month. And therefore, even the size that we have to develop for them differs. At any point of time, if you want to contribute, just unmute and speak. Again, promotion, obviously, the promotion is going to be very different for the children, because when I'm targeting children, I'm not just targeting children, I'm targeting the mother also. The child may be an influencer, but it's the mother who pays, and she is somewhere a final decision maker, and therefore I have to target both kid and the mother. And therefore, how would the ads be? The ads would favor would feature kids, would feature mother. It would most probably talk about how this will make your child a genius, or super intelligent, or healthy, or full of energy, or positivity, blah, blah, so on and so forth. But the promotion is going to be featured around them. Not only that, which media platforms will you be using? With kids visit, where the mothers visit, and not in some car show, or not in some very serious discussion happening about some arms deal or things like that. So even the platforms differ. On the other hand, for senior citizens, needless to mention, the advertisements or the promotion should feature them. It should be about their life. It should talk about how it will help them, give them strength. Even the platforms will differ. It will be the platforms where they visit. It's not going to be the cartoon channel if you are targeting the senior citizens. Place, as we discussed yesterday, a mother would be more comfortable. A mother has to visit a grocery store very, very often, and therefore if the product is available over there, she will very easily pick it up. On the other hand, very unfortunately, the place which is visited very frequently by the senior citizens is also a chemist, and most probably if the product comparatively is there, then they will feel more comfortable. Depending on the size of the product and depending on the time and effort, accordingly, the pricing too will differ. A powder is a powder is a powder. And yet, the moment you develop it for different segments, it changes. So while for children, it is colorful, it is 1 kg, it has too many flavors, and it is available at a grocery store, and the promotion comprises of most probably a mother and a child and the energy around it. For senior citizens, it's a smaller packet. It's not that colorful. The flavors are comparatively less. It is most probably available at a chemist shop, and the promotion also features them, right? The moment, as I said, a powder is a powder is a powder. However, the moment we decided to develop it further for the different segments, it changed. And now comes targeting. Now, depending on your macro and micro environment, you may decide whom to target. You want to target children segment, or you want to target the senior citizen segment. And accordingly, then you go ahead and you position yourself. You must be wondering, we've spoken about all this before. Why is it that I'm bringing it to your notice now? I'm bringing it to your notice once again because as a student, my next question would be, okay, so how do you do this? So you sit on a table chair, just like I'm sitting, you have a Google Meet, and you decide, okay, this is a segment, this is how I will do, and I will target. No. I mean, this is not how it is done. This is just to show you an example. This requires deep research. Because marketing is not about what you and I think. No. Marketing is about what my customer thinks. And how will I come to know what my customer thinks? The only way to know what my customer thinks is by something called market research. So even before we go ahead and learn about product, price, place, promotion, which I keep promising you, you have to understand that our homework is still not over. We are still not ready to meet the needs of the customer, forget about meeting them profitably. Because we may know segmentation, targeting, positioning. We may know macro and micro environment. We may know the evolution of marketing, the definition of marketing. We may know about consumer behavior, about perception and learning and motivation and so on and so forth. But unless and until you put it all together and understand that all this is found out with the help of market research. And that was the reason I shared those 2 PDFs also with you before I get into these details. And let me show you how marketing research helps us to identify our segment and tells us in detail about it. So let me share that, open that PDF for you. Yeah. Hope it is visible. Okay. So when you see, look, I have just taken one segment. And look at the way they have defined that segment. If you read this article, they have defined a lot of segments. I've just picked up one. It is called ZAM. And you know why they have, and they've given it a name. Can you beat it? I mean, so what is the name? The name is because these are zoo, aquarium, museum goers. They're talking about the oceans and so on. And just see the market research, how they have defined after the market research. They said that these people are placed low to moderate personal importance on protecting the ocean. So they're not that bothered, right? They are much less likely than the young beach lovers, which is another segment, to consider the damage to the oceans an extremely serious environmental problem. Nearly every member of this group disagrees. I'm sorry if there's a noise coming, they're doing some work outside. Nearly every member of this group disagrees with the idea that he or she does not personally impact ocean health. and they are among the most likely to disagree. Polluted oceans are able to clean themselves, so on and so forth. So they have described it in so much detail. They're talking about them, about their attitudes. And then if you go on further, they talk about how to appeal to them. Depending on their behavior, it says, reinforce the personal connection to the ocean, educate them about the role of oceans, and educate about the current state of oceans. How can we come to a conclusion of how to reach out to my consumer? Only if you know about your consumer. How do you know about your consumer? By market research. And therefore, the next topic that I'm going to deal today is market research. But am I going to deal with it in depth? No, because as per your syllabus, it's supposed to be in asynchronous mode, and by end of the day, I will be uploading all the material. But before I do that, I wanted you to have a brief look at what do we mean by it. So the definition says it's a systematic and objective identification, collection, analysis, dissemination, and use of information for the purpose of assisting management in decision making, right? So how do we do it? Okay, this definition is fine, but are there any steps? Yes. The first one, what is the problem? Why are we doing market research? Except for the fact that our faculty is after our life, why are we doing market research? Well, you do market research because if you have a problem. So right now the problem may be, what do I do with this powder which can be mixed in milk? Who will like it? What taste, what flavors do I develop? Right? Or let's take some other problem. So as a marketing person, I have heard that children influence the purchase decisions of the family, and I have witnessed it. I succumb to it every day. All the decisions of the house are taken by the children. So we watch cartoon films, we watch films which they like, we go for holidays where they like, we eat food which they like. But yet, I am not the person who is supposed to, just because something is happening in my life doesn't mean it's happening in everyone's life. But marketers most probably want to find out, do children really influence the purchase decisions of a family? Great, we have a problem. Do they influence, right? The next step that you do is then you understand that how do I go around trying to find out this? How do I prove it, or how do I disapprove it? So we make that research design. Great. Now that you have the design, you go ahead and collect the data for it. You do the analysis and you present the report. So let's go step by step, and let's take this problem. The children have we want to find out whether children have an influence in the purchase decisions of the house. So there are two kinds of research, exploratory and conclusive. Now, what is exploratory? Exploratory, as the name suggests, is when I'm still trying to understand. I haven't really arrived at the decision, and therefore, most probably, I'll start with exploratory research. So do children have an influence on purchase decision making? Usually what we do is we start with the exploratory research to give us a foundation that, am I in the right direction? Is this topic worth exploring? Is this topic worth a research? Or am I wasting my time? I mean, this topic may be of interest to me, but does it make sense to spend so much time on this topic? Because research, again, requires time and effort. So usually what we do is we first do the exploratory research, which gives us a foundation. And once that foundation is solid enough, we then go ahead and do the conclusive research, which may be descriptive or causal. As compared, so as I said, exploratory research is more flexible. It gives you a foundation. On the other hand, the other research then gets into more serious things. How do you gather data? I mean, don't get I will be sharing all this with you. So just right now, just listen to me. The next step is, okay, once I've decided that I will be going ahead with whatever research design, then how do I gather data? So there are various ways of gathering data. There are two primary ways, secondary data and primary data. Now, what is secondary data? Secondary data is something which already exists. So all you have to do is, through various sources, collate it and understand that data. And we always do that because thank God their secondary data exists. Otherwise, I just might wake up one day and say, hey, why is this apple falling from the sky to the ground? And why isn't it going in the reverse direction? I must do a research. Now, thank God secondary data is there, because if I look at the secondary data, I would find out that this research has already been done. And somebody already found out about gravity a long time back, and therefore if now I want to again find out about gravity, I'm wasting my time and effort. So secondary data is extremely valuable. Secondary data helps you to understand to what extent the research has already been done on that topic. Secondary data helps you to understand the gaps. So secondary data helps you to decide, okay, till this point the research has been done, now I can most probably carry it forward. Secondary data gives you a reality check. There are research, so do I necessarily have to do primary data? No, a lot of research is only based on secondary data. So for example, I want to do research about the Mughal Empire. I mean, unless not a time machine is gathered and I can go back over there and collect primary data, it's a little difficult. I do it with secondary data. Or I want to understand the economy of my country for the last 50 years. I would be using secondary data. So secondary data is extremely important, and secondary data helps you to understand the current position. Secondary data is also used for the literature review. And once we have done the secondary data, then we may decide to go ahead with the primary data. Yes, in the research world, primary data is more valuable because primary data is current. Primary data is something which we will collect now. Primary data is something which is very, very authentic, right? But as I said, then your topic may be such that it can only work only with secondary data. But for this topic that we are talking about, influence of children on the purchase decision, we have to do primary data. So secondary data may tell me that this research has been done in the western part of the world, and maybe they have found something. This may tell me that in India, the research has been done to this extent, so on and so forth. So now I have secondary data with me, and now I decide to go ahead and do primary data, collect primary data. Now, primary data can again be of two kinds, qualitative or quantitative. What is qualitative? Qualitative is when we do focus group interviews, in-depth interviews, and things like that. And what is quantitative? Quantitative is when you give questionnaire and you ask people to give answers. That's quantitative, right? I know most of you may be lost at this point of time. Maybe, I don't know if you're still awake, but any question till now? Anything which you haven't understood or is not making sense if you're still there?
Ma'am, can you show that slide again?
Which one?
The one you were showing right now.
Of course. Give me a minute. Yes. Tell me. This one?
Yes, ma'am. I just tried to take a screenshot. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry, I will be sharing it with you. I told you I would be sharing. Don't worry about this. I would be sharing all this. And I would be sharing the class recordings with you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I always do. Okay, so qualitative as well as quantitative. So what is qualitative? Qualitative is when I collect data by focus group. Now, what is a focus group? Focus group is when we usually have around 7-8 people and we discuss a topic. And there is a moderator, and you try to understand. You try to understand their views on your related topic. In-depth interview obviously is a one-to-one interview. So I may decide to have a one-to-one interview with the mother or the child, and so on and so forth. While quantitative is usually with questionnaires. Now my next question: if I were a student, or even now, would be, so there 60, I mean, India is a young nation, and so do I have to interview every child? I mean, how do I decide which mother, which child, which city? Yes, very important. I mean, I wish I could interview all the children. I wish I could interview all the mother. I could collect data from all the children and the mother. That's not possible. And therefore, what we do is take a sample. We do sampling. And what are the different ways of sampling? There are two ways of sampling: probability sampling and non-probability sampling. What is probability sampling? Probability sampling is when every person has an equal, every child has an equal chance of being a part of that sample. So it's not based on what I like or I don't like. Non-probability sampling, obviously, is when it's not really that everyone gets a fair chance to be a part of that sample, and somewhere I, as the researcher, decide. The next question may be, but then what would you do non-probability sampling? Well, non-probability sampling is cheaper, non-probability sampling consumes less time, and maybe as a researcher, I may have huge dreams, but maybe I don't have the resources. I may not have the resources to reach out to as many cities as I would like to, and yet I want to do research, and therefore I may do non-probability sampling. Obviously, the one which is favored more is probability sampling, which is given more due is the probability sampling, but non-probability sampling also has its plus. Now, what is convenience? So there are three kinds of non-probability sampling: convenience, judgmental, and snowball. What is convenience? As a researcher, I interview or I collect a questionnaire from those which is as per my convenience. So I stay in a particular society and I decide to collect it from children of that society, right? What is judgmental sampling? So judgmental sampling is when it's not totally convenience, but somewhere I set a parameter. So I only want to interview or I want to collect the questionnaire only from those children who are studying in English medium school, right? So so it's not just that I am taking from everyone. What is snowball sampling? So snowball sampling is, so I collect information from two kids and I tell them, hey, can you connect me to two more of your friends? So they connect me to two more of their friends. And I then tell those friends, hey, can you connect me to more of your friends? And they connect me to more of their friends. So it's a snowball sampling. As the snow falls through the mountain, you know, that ball, it keeps becoming bigger and bigger and bigger as more snow gets into it. So what I'm doing is I'm requesting my candidates to help me connect to more people. Probability sampling. What is simple random sampling? So simple random sampling is when everyone has an equal chance of being a part of the sample, so maybe in a class. So we draw numbers, and depending on whose number comes, we select the people. Systematic sampling, that is when you decide, for example, every 10th person, so every 10th student, so whose roll number is 10, 20, 30. Now, I don't know who is 10. I don't know who is 20. I don't know who is 30. And that's why it's probability. What is stratified sampling? So stratified sampling is, so I may decide to divide the population into boys and girls. I have created a stratification. And now from boys, I will select by simple random sampling or systematic sampling. And similarly from girls, I will select by simple sampling, random sampling or systematic sampling. And finally, what is cluster sampling? So cluster sampling is, instead of dividing as boy and girl, instead of dividing on the basis of age or gender, we divide on the basis of location. So I want to know the views of the children of Pune. So I decide to divide Pune into North Pune, South Pune, East Pune, West Pune. Right now, from West Pune, I will select by simple random sampling or systematic sampling, and so on and so forth. Right? So stratified is when you divide on the basis of age or gender. Cluster is when you divide on the basis of region. Well, I know this may be too much for you in one day, but let me take a break at this point of time and let me come back to you. Let me come back to you to help you understand that market research is an integral part of marketing. Because you and I, we don't take decisions on the basis of what you and I think. No, I has no value in marketing. There's nothing called I. If you need to understand marketing, you need to move from I to at least we. Even if you don't move ahead of we, but you need to reach till we, because marketing is about we. And therefore, how do I understand what my consumer wants? I understand what my consumer wants only through market research. And to recap it, as I said, I will be sharing everything. To recap it, how do we do market research? First, what is the problem? What is the problem facing us? So the problem, for example, facing us was that, do children influence the purchase decisions? Great. Second, research design. Will I do exploratory or will I do the descriptive one? Well, to begin with, I will do exploratory because I'm not even sure whether I have the right problem, whether this problem is worth all the investigation, and therefore I will do exploratory. So how you may do exploratory? You may do exploratory. I may just do small focus group interviews. I may do in-depth interviews to get an idea whether I'm in the right direction or not. Once I know that I'm in the right direction, then yes, go ahead. Now collect data. How do you collect data? You can collect data by surveys. So you have to make a questionnaire, or you can again collect data with the help of focus groups or interviews. But now you have a hypothesis with you, and you make hypothesis. What is hypothesis? Children have an influence on purchase decisions like toys. Children do not have an influence on purchase decisions like car. And I will prove these hypotheses right or wrong. And from where are these hypotheses coming? These hypotheses are coming from your exploratory research. So you collect data, but how do I collect data? I collect data by sampling. So you decide what kind of sampling you want to do depending on your resources, depending on the time that you have. Obviously, probability sampling is always more valued than non-probability sampling, but then you need to understand your own resources and so on. And once you have collected data, then you use various tools, statistical tools, econometric tools, to analyze that data to see what the different people are saying. So when that PDF I showed you, when they said so many people are saying this, obviously they have used tools, statistical tools and econometric tools. Once you have analyzed that data, put it in a report, there you are ready to know what your consumer is saying, which consumer you want to target, and how should you position. Obviously, more the homework done, the better it is. At this point, let me end this topic, and I will come back to you for the questions.